One of the early decisions we had to make was a very conscious choice to stay where we were or to grow. And it had to be intentional, because if we just kept doing what we were doing, we were going to grow.
That's Benson Varghese and Anna Summersett of Varghese Summersett.
The ambition just kind of took over. It's like, no, we were created to be challenged, and we were created to grow, and we were created to be ambitious. And so that's the path that we took.
I'm Michael Mogill, founder and CEO of CRISP, the nation's #1 law firm growth company. I've built my business through practice, not theory. CRISP started with just $500 to my name and has grown to over 8 figures in revenue over the last few years, earning a spot on the Inc. 500 list of the fastest growing private companies in America. Our approach has been to take everything we've learned about generating massive growth within our own organization and help the country's most ambitious and committed law firm owners do the same for theirs. In each episode of this podcast, I sit down with innovative market leaders from the legal industry and beyond to learn from those who thrive in the face of adversity, challenge the status quo, and define what it means to be a true game changer. I sat down with Anna and Benson to discuss why taking a client-centered approach leads to transformational growth, how leveraging technology can free up your team and become a competitive advantage, and how running a firm with your spouse requires radical candor and a shared vision.
Being married and knowing each other for as long as we have the advantage of being able to really speak freely. And sometimes freely means it's very direct.
Verbal punch to the face.
Yeah. It almost feels like it. But because we think differently, but we always know we're rowing in the same direction. Whatever Anna's telling me, it's coming from a place where she wants us to succeed.
That's coming up on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. Before we begin today's episode, I want to remind you that we aren't beholden to any sponsors or run any ads on this podcast. This allows us to present all of our episodes raw and unfiltered. I'm not going to push any made-to-order meal services on you or try to save you any money on your car insurance. That being said, I have one small request. If you receive any value from this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. Pay the fee so we can keep this podcast free. Anna and Benson, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
We're very excited. This is probably our first 4-person podcast in person. This is amazing. It's like the spouses.
I know.
It's like a double date.
Right.
It is. It is.
Where's the wine?
Exactly.
One could argue the space was built for this episode.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's good. Yeah.
Exactly. We've always had 4 mics.
We
just
have.
never used all 4 at the exact same time. So
The inauguration.
we've known each other for a while. I mean, you guys have built a phenomenal practice. We were just talking about this even before we started recording, like parents, kids, and I'm sure we'll talk about all of that. For those that are listening, if you could speak to, I guess, your origin story, if you will. With each of you, how'd you guys come together? What led to starting the firm? I know this, there's a lot of little different pieces here, but Benson, let's start with you.
Sure. Anna and I met at the district attorney's office. We were both prosecutors together. We'd been there about 4 years, each tried about 100 cases, and realized there really was a ceiling at the time for how far you could go as a prosecutor with speed. Being who I am, I said, hey, I'd like to have limitless opportunity. I'm thinking about starting my own practice. With Anna's help, I planned for a year on how to step out and start our practice together and
Well, you skipped all the juicy stuff.
Yeah? Well, take it away.
Well, in terms of our origin relationally, he was actually I was working for Judicial Staff Counsel. He was working for a district judge, and the Judicial Staff Counsel is supposed to advise the judges. And so they had introduced us both as interns, essentially, as each other's competition for the first job that would be opening as a prosecutor. And we were under a hiring freeze because this was recession 2009. And we were waiting for that position to open. And finally, one opened. We both interviewed for it, and he got it. And miraculously, I got one 2 weeks later. We started at the same time. I saw him walking down the sidewalk. I was waving like a lunatic because I was like, somebody I recognize, somebody I know. And that's how we first met, was really as competition.
The way she usually tells this story, she adds another detail, which is she got another job before this DA spot came open. And she came to my office to tell me that she got the job. And she claims I had a pencil in my hand that I snapped. Because I was so frustrated that my competition had beat me in getting this position.
And I thought it was because he was in love with me. But that was not the reason. He was upset that I got a job first.
The competition eventually bloomed into romance.
Yeah. But your origin starts so much better than
take
when
us
you
back
met
to the
me.
rubber plantation.
So I grew up elementary school here in the United States in Texas. And my parents believed I was wayward youth. And that was them being first-generation Americans, seeing me get in schoolyard scrabbles, not doing as well academically as they'd hoped. And in their mind, I was definitely going to become a gang member. That's where my life was going. So they
And
said,
you can imagine like little Benson being like, schoolyard,
Right.
you and me.
well, they were
After
convinced.
class. That's where the immigrant brain goes. Yes.
solution to this problem was to send me back to, sometimes I'll joke and say, the motherland. So they sent me back to India, initially to go to boarding school. That didn't work out well for me. And within 2 weeks, I begged to go live with my grandparents. I lived with them, and we lived on a rubber plantation. And so a rubber plantation is what it sounds like. There are acres and acres of trees. You tap the rubber trees, get the latex, and you sell either the latex or what we did, we would turn it into rubber sheets and sell it. Well, by about 10th grade, my grandparents thought, Benson's doing pretty good. He can probably handle this on his own. Let him run the rubber plantation. And my dad, having the wisdom of, this is a safe experiment. It doesn't really matter if he makes a success of this or not. It'll be a good time for him to learn. They entrusted me with the rubber plantation, and I didn't know the first thing about running a rubber plantation. And I was taken advantage of financially every way you could imagine. And I ran that rubber plantation into the ground. But in essentially destroying that rubber plantation and having to figure out, well, what do I have to do differently to make this work, which was to learn from others, to study the market, to know when to tap, to know how much labor a person should do when you give them a day's wage. I learned all those things essentially the hard way, but that's also given me the freedom to say I can be an entrepreneur. I've been through tough times. And if you go in with the mindset of you're willing to learn, there's really nothing you can't accomplish. So that's probably what gave me the gumption to say, look, everyone's telling me the market, and this is true, everyone told me the market was bad. Gone were the days in Texas where you could go from being a prosecutor to this great litigator in personal injury because tort reform had already happened in Texas. So everyone said, don't do this. You have a great government job. But, you know, I had this wild hair of I can start something, and I've got someone who thinks very differently than I do, but is so encouraging and helping me plan this that it could be done.
Were you guys together when you opened the firm?
Great.
Oh, define together. We were not engaged or married yet.
Okay.
Which, if you can imagine the dinner conversations with my parents around that, you're going to go into business with this man you're kind of dating?
Yep. Yep.
But I think we had already decided and had worked together for 4 years already as prosecutors and had tried some pretty big cases together, that we worked really well together. So regardless of what happened romantically, we knew that the synergy was there for the business relationship to be successful. What my parents were wise too is once you're around him this much and doing all of these hard things together and finding success together, you will end up getting married. Is this the person you want to marry? And turns out it was. So
we joke working together is like dog years.
Yeah, multiply by 7.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
I know. By the time we got married, I mean, we've only been married 7 years, which doesn't sound like a lot of time. But the things that we've been through relationally in business and outside of business, I feel like it's like a 50-year relationship.
Very similar.
Point.
Yeah, this year will be 8 years married for us. So it's very similar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's being nice. So the truth is, I was pursuing her for many years, and it took many attempts to convince her that I was the one. But as she said, especially trying cases together, we knew whether she was romantically interested in me or thought I was no good, we worked really well together, and that's always been true.
Yeah. So that idea you have about never quitting, there's no failure you can't overcome, also applied to me.
Yeah,
I guess so.
Never give up.
So I'm curious in terms of like what led to the inception of the practice. I know you got some seed money, right? Wasn't a whole lot at the time, but just what led you guys to just going off on your own and saying, let's do this thing, and what was day one like?
When I was at the district attorney's office, the office was so good, no one was leaving. So the only way to promote up was for people to leave. And because we had good administration, no one left. That was frustrating, being always ranked number 1 or number 2 each year and yet not moving up. So opportunity is what was calling. But as I studied the market, one of the things that I noticed was there were attorneys who were good at getting outcomes. No one was talking about the client journey, and no one was thinking about the client journey. this is hard to imagine. Just 11 years ago, people were still advertising in the yellow pages as well. So there was a very traditional model of how law firms were marketed. There was a very traditional sense of, well, you come here and you entrust me with your problem, I'll give you a great outcome. Very little thought about the months or years that it takes to get to that outcome. So we saw that as something we could do differently. And there was this moment where I went to the dentist and I realized the dentist was probably sending me automated follow-ups, but they were effective and needed automated follow-ups. I was thinking to myself, why are we in legal so far behind? So all of these things kind of came together to start this idea of, I'm going to start a law firm. What was day one like? The truth is, in
Benson
the beginning,
staring at the phone, waiting for it to ring.
That's right. The truth is, in the beginning, you have so much time and you are waiting for the phone to ring. What we did during that time was writing content to give people information, which at the time, at least in North Texas, was not the norm. It was exceptional to say the thing that I've worked for, which is to understand the law and be able to tell people about the law, how it applies to their case or facts, can be given. We believed in the democratization of information, and that really helped us at the beginning. So I stared at the phone, but while I was staring at the phone, I was doing the things to eventually make the phone ring.
I joined a little over 6 months later. Even though we had been planning to go into business together, I was kind of like, you start. Proof of concept. I'll come later. But we had spent about a year leading up to actually hanging the proverbial shingle planning, whether that was creating content or coming up with strategies or, evaluating the market and figuring out what our business model was going to be and what it was going to look like. And then he went out and really put in that sweat equity of learning all the things that I think people, when they initially open a practice, will pay other vendors a lot of money to figure out. Like, oh, quick fix, you can get me leads? Great. Here's $5,000, here's $10,000. When you don't have that money, when you're starting with $9,000 to cover everything, you have to learn it yourself. So it was that necessity built in with, he's kind of a lifelong learner, and I've called him that for a long time. He loves learning new things, and he loves mastering new skills before he'll even consider using somebody outside to delegate to. And so we really utilized that time to figure out how to do this on our own. And the first thing we did once we found some success with that was to bring in what we would call legitimizers, which are attorneys who were better at the legal job than we were, who had better name recognition, who had decades worth of reputation built, because we were just 5-year baby lawyers. Like, who was going to call and say, I would like Anna Summersett to try my case? And that ended up being an incredible move for us.
Yeah. How would you describe like the dynamic between the two of you? Obviously, you worked together prior to starting the firm, but just in terms of skill sets, unique abilities, how would you describe that?
I think before we did Prent and Colby through CRISP, we didn't have a way to really define how different we were and like how those personalities would sometimes clash or sometimes work well together. But I'm a quick start, meaning that I'm okay with it being 80% right as long as it's done. Let's just keep moving. Speed, means so much more than perfection. And Benson is a high, fact finder and a high follow through. And so he wants to know all of the information before he makes a decision. So as you can imagine, when faced with a problem, sometimes we are really competing in how we would address it. As we've worked together more, we've given each other kind of these areas of influence. Like, these are the things that, if done quickly and not perfectly, would benefit the firm. These are the things that have to be done really well and be really thorough in order to benefit the firm. And so those kind of became our sphere of influence, if you will. And we kind of have a lot of autonomy in that space. And then when it comes to big decisions, we're making those decisions together. But ultimately, as the managing partner, he gets the final say so. And that means like steam coming out of my ears, like, this can't be right. But I've really grown to really trust his decision making and come to appreciate the fact that I'm not the one who has that ultimate responsibility.
Right. Yeah.
What would you say?
Being married and knowing each other for as long as we have the advantage of being able to really speak freely. And sometimes freely means it's very direct.
Verbal punch to the face.
Yes. It almost feels like it. But because we think differently, but we always know we're rowing in the same direction. Whatever Anna's telling me, it's coming from a place where she wants us to succeed. Of course, not every law firm can have partners that are married, but that idea of you're in this together, you're rowing in the same direction has to be the foundation of how you make decisions together. The other aspect of having very different roles, which we do within the firm. I'm more the visionary. You're much more working with
the executioner.
Executing. We've adopted this above and below the waterline philosophy of if there are things happening above the waterline on a ship, you get attacked, that's not going to sink the ship. Below the waterline, something happens, it's going to sink the ship. So what I've tried to do over time is start focusing only on the things that are below the waterline. Those are only things that need to get to my desk, because we did not want a situation where decisions were not being made because I'm the fact finder and I want to make sure every box is checked. And Anna needs the ability to lead teams and move quickly. So we've come up with that, and I think that's worked well. At the beginning of this year, Anna came to me and said, okay, you write down all the things that you have to have final say.
I need a list.
And she said, they're going to be 5. Pick whatever 5 you want them to be. They're going to be 5. But it's actually worked out beautifully.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes he'll ask me, why wasn't I consulted on this? I'm like, it's not on your top 5.
No,
that's
see?
why. I just had to move, man.
Yes.
I had to get some things done.
What were, in the early years and kind of the early stages, what were some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome? Like things you didn't anticipate in the firm that like you look back on now, I mean, perhaps you would have approached differently, but were pivotal points in the firm growing.
One of the most memorable phrases I've heard from an employee is something that I've used going forward, which is sometimes the person that takes you to first is not the person that takes you to third or gets you home. There were people who were critical to that initial growth who then, when we grew, were uncomfortable with what we had grown to. Because there is something really valuable and special about being a 5-person team that you can't replicate exactly at 30 people or now 70 plus people. And so those people who loved that part of it realized, hey, this isn't the best place for me. It's not because I don't love Anna or Benson. It's that I love being in that smaller environment, and that's what I crave. So I don't know that I would have changed anything, but you have to open yourself up to that you may have great people in your organization who you will continue to refer cases to or support through their careers, but they're going to go on and do different things because that's what's best for them. And we as a firm have to say, yes, sometimes growing to the point that we've grown means giving up some things, right? I may not know everyone's dog's names now, right? Doesn't mean I care any less for them. It's just a function of how many people we have and just being okay with that.
Well, and I think too, one of the early decisions we had to make, I would say it was about year 4, was a very conscious choice to stay where we were or to grow. And it had to be intentional because if we just kept doing what we were doing, we were going to grow. And so we had to decide, are we comfortable with that? Are we comfortable with what our life looks like, you know, running a 20-person team or a 30-person team? And we had just had our second son, so our middle child, and spent several months talking about, you know, what does this look like? Are we taking the bumpers off and doing this thing? Are we going to kind of cozy down and be comfortable with this beautiful life that we've built? And ultimately, I think for both of us, because we both have 3s, the ambition just kind of took over. It's like, no, we were created to be challenged and we were created to grow and we were created to be ambitious. And so that's the path that we took. But not everybody, you know, joins you on that path.
Yeah. Michael and I will often say, who got you here won't get you there.
Right.
And that's okay. Like, to your point, it's okay. I think when you even said about like, okay, I don't know everyone's dog's name or anything. And that was really hard for me as we grew because I hired every person forever. And then I just remember planning team outings. And when you're small, you're like, I'm going to plan it around everyone so everyone can go. And then I just remember as we got bigger, I was like, well, Michael, like all these people can't go. And he's like, we're past that. Like, there's not going to be a time anymore where everyone can go. So that was kind of a hard thing for me to transition to as well.
Yeah. How would you guys describe the culture of the firm today?
Well, I think the culture of the firm is really centered around a growth mindset. And that is not just professionally speaking, you know, growing to be better lawyers, to pursue better cases, to pursue justice for our clients, but also growing personally. And that doesn't just mean growing personally at your skill set. It can be growing personally outside of work. And so there's a lot of focus on the family unit, the friend unit. There's a lot of focus on how we communicate, just being able to identify and self-reflect on things that we're weak at, that we need assistance with, and then the firm providing resources to help our team build out those skill sets, I think has been really a valuable part of the firm because people know when they stay here, they will grow here in all aspects of their life and watch all aspects of their life become better.
Having the growth mindset was so integral to who we are now that it is the only time we've changed our core values. We changed our core values to specifically list that out. We're very focused on what we call our firm family and the extended family, in addition to getting great outcomes and really providing that unparalleled service that we talked about initially. But the reason we highlighted the growth mindset is we started recognizing those things that are necessary to be successful as a part of our firm. And I agree with everything Anna said in terms of it's so much more than this idea that the firm is growing. We're also constantly changing. One of the things we talked about on the flight over here as we asked ourselves a very similar question was all of our people are constantly being challenged, not as I'm challenging you as a person, but we want to know the process that you're using, and we're challenging the process to see if we could do that process better. And we're always doing that. And it's like we focus on one division to the next and the one process to the next. But we believe that's the way we stay ahead and really distinguish ourselves from everyone else. And ultimately, clients benefit from our improved processes.
Well, I know everybody talks about having SOPs. Write down your processes, have a standard operating procedure. I don't think a lot of people, though, sit down and say, show me it, right? Show me how you're doing it. And as you sit down and watch people execute the SOPs, you realize, that's not right, or that's not what it says, or that's not the most efficient way to do it. We need to rewrite that. And always questioning, why are we doing it that way? Is that the best way? Is there a better way? Have we thought about this? And sometimes it's met with some pushback because people feel like they're always being challenged. And we always say, we're not challenging people, we're challenging process. And that's been integral to that growth mindset being part of our core values and the culture of the firm.
And speaking of people, what when you're hiring, what do you look for? Like, are there certain types of like traits, or just, I've heard you guys describe the team and the attorneys as elite. Like, what makes them that?
Well, I will tell you, there are several days in my life where I know my life took a different course. One of those days, and I'm not just saying this because you're sitting here, but was listening to you, Jessica, talk about the hiring funnel. By the next week, we had adopted our own version of the hiring funnel, because what we were able to do before that session, that workshop, was we were hiring based on people we knew in the community. And we could do that when we were small and when we were in one practice area. As we grew, that became harder and harder to do. I'll say still today, every attorney we've hired was an attorney we knew of or knew very well. But when we started talking about staff, those came in from a variety of different places, and having a hiring funnel where you're in at the very outset looking for people who are actually interested in working for Varghese Summersett as opposed to anywhere, who read and follow instructions, are passionate about what they're doing, and their why centers around people. That helps us get to the right candidates. And we've had very little turnover. It's not just that we have great people. Even talking to other law firm owners, our attrition rate is very low. And I think that has to do a lot with the hiring funnel and just not letting the need in the moment overtake the need to get the right person. And that's so tempting to do because your team is asking you for help, and you know the pressure that they're under, especially if you lost a person and now everyone's scrambling to pick up their work. Just reminding them that we want the right person, not just a person.
Well, and I think something else that's really important to the legal team specifically is not just being compassionate and empathetic and being able to connect with people on a human level. It also is understanding that because we keep a very low caseload compared to other lawyers, and we do that on purpose, that the expectation is that this would be hand-holding the entire way through, because we're trying to transform their journey through the legal system and not just ultimately get the best result, which I think our teams do get excellent results. But building that trust throughout the entire relationship requires somebody who's an excellent communicator, and not just in the written word and not just in front of a jury, but in casual conversation, somebody who truly cares about the people that they're working with. And part of that relationship aspect, I think, is necessary in everybody who comes to work. Now, the one you've added recently is technology and being adept to how quickly technology changes. And Benson started Loft, which is a law firm case management software, several years ago. And the firm has been at the front of that development because we've been using it. And at times that's very difficult. It's very challenging because you're talking about new technology that's doing new things. There's a ton of AI adoption there, a ton of automation adoption. And some of our staff that we've worked with for a long time really struggled with integrating into new tech. And so he brought that in as part of the hiring funnel now. Like, what is your level of comfortability with technology? Walk me through what you know about AI. What tools do you use? Why do you use them? Just to make sure that you're getting somebody who has that mindset, to shift with the change in technology.
Yeah, I know, Benson, you talked earlier about the client journey and the importance of that. I'd love if you guys could speak to some of the specifics of what you do that's unique in terms of the client experience that's different from other firms. I mean, I'll even start just, anyone listening to this podcast, is just go to your website. Like, that in itself is a unique experience. It's not like your traditional website, especially when you go on your phone. By location, by practice area, you've got the AI assistant. Like, if you could speak to some of that stuff.
Well, I'll start with the website to give credit where credit is due. The website you're looking at is a result of the last intensive I was at, where we all talked about what AI could do. And I'm not one to write down a bunch of ideas and say, that sounds great. Again, probably within 2 weeks, using AI, we rebuilt all of our website to do one thing, which is if a visitor comes to our website, to get them to where they want to be. If you were able to look at the website 2 weeks prior or the day that I came to the intensive, there was a menu with 50 items on it under each drop down, and yes, maybe you could find things. Bigger picture though, we are always trying to get into the mindset of the person that has come to us, whether it's going back to day one when I was trying to think about what is a mom whose son just got arrested, trying to get the answers for at 2 a.m. and putting that freely on the website, to if a client signs up with us based on the type of case they have, the court that they're in, they're going to get very specific messages from us. To use an example, if you have a family court setting, you're going to get automated messages, and of course they're going to look personalized to the client, but you're going to get messages about what court you're in, what this judge expects, how to dress for court. You're going to get a YouTube video about the specific issue that you're about to face. So oftentimes in family law, that's temporary orders. Well, what are temporary orders? What should you be providing your attorney? So we're using video, we're using automated messages. And so within the first week to 2 weeks, they're getting so much information from us that is paced but customized to what their needs are. It's very unique because we know from talking to many other attorneys and hiring other attorneys that typically what happens again is you hire and maybe the day before a hearing, you're going to get a phone call about what to expect. So 2 weeks went by, expand that out to however long a case takes. So it's just a lot of intention behind what is this client uniquely facing and how do we answer those questions?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with really tailoring the process to the specific need. I think a lot of firms do a good job of touch points. We talk a lot about like every 2 weeks, do a touch point, put in their birthday, wish them happy birthday, send a card. We, of course, do all the big stuff. Like you send a client box at the end congratulating them on the, result. And you send a letter on the anniversary of their loved one's passing to just memorialize that. And those big touch points are important, but I think what people are really looking for to overcome the anxiety they have of going through the legal process is somebody to set expectations and to set them very early. And so the whole process for each of our different practice areas, because we do have 3, and each different type of case within that practice area all has their own automation. They all have their own workflow for the information somebody's going to receive over the pendency of a case. And so I think tailoring it is what really makes our client journey quite unique to other law firms that are maybe already doing a very good job with the touch points, but they're just not specific enough to really be helpful.
As much as we talk about the automated workflows that we've built through Loft, I don't want to leave the impression that we're leaving out personal contact. But what we are doing is setting a floor for every case where we know at a minimum this has happened. And what we're telling our folks is we want you to do the things that you're best at, making those personal connections. We want you to come on top of that and not be bogged down by the administrative things. So it's not just a higher level of contact. The contact that is happening is much more meaningful.
Well, it's been interesting. I've had some staff say, well, I used to do all this stuff manually. So now what do I do? And I was like, that's a great question. What are you going to do with your time? Because it needs to be replaced with something if you want to stay here. And they get to do the flourish on top, which is not just get better at their craft, be more thorough in cases, get better results, be more efficient, less time on desk, but also in that personal contact with clients, because there are some things that AI can't replace, and that's one of them.
Let's talk about the practice areas. Like I know 3 practice areas now. What led to the expansion from one to the next and so on? And obviously the firm has grown. And Benson, you mentioned over 70 plus team members now. You guys are 8-figure year. You hit Inc. 5,000. Like just, all the awards. Even got an award. I think I saw it was the best place for working parents.
That's right.
Got that one too?
Now we know how important that is.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think that one's been 4 years running. We're super proud of that one. That's right up there with Inc. 5,000 for us.
Essentially, what's driven the expansion?
You told us not to. You were like, do not expand.
Yeah.
I understand there's a lot of value in that advice, which is until you have really accomplished success in one space, don't divert your attention. I think what we came down to is that our niche wasn't just going to be in a practice area. It wasn't going to be in this very specific type of law practice. It was going to be maybe in a city, right? Maybe our niche was going to be Fort Worth. Maybe our niche was going to be the client journey. Maybe our niche was going to be the best known lawyers in the area. And I think where people make the mistake is they think, well, if I expand into other practice areas, I need to learn a new practice. You don't. You just hire the experts who are out there, bring them in and have them run divisions. So what we ended up doing is having 3 different divisions, none of which we personally run, right? We're hiring people who are extremely senior, more senior than we are, and we've got 16 years under our belt with our licenses, but to run those divisions. And so because they are separated as divisions, they provide a very clear message to our clients that our family lawyers practice family law, our criminal lawyers practice criminal law, our personal injury lawyers practice personal injury and wrongful death. There is no crossover. But once they're in that ecosystem and they get the taste of what it's like to have somebody care about your case from start to finish, and we extend that relationship past the conclusion of a case, they stay in that ecosystem. And it is common for individuals who have criminal defense issues to also have family law issues that need to be addressed. And the collaboration between our teams to be able to keep that all under house in one place has really been valuable. What would you say?
No, I agree. This idea of niching down makes sense. And I will say one of the things we realized when we got to about 10 attorneys in criminal is that in criminal, in primarily Fort Worth, that was about as big as things were going to get. So when we started looking at where do we grow, we could grow geographically, which we have done, and we could grow into practice areas. Another inflection point in my life was one of the summits where there was a lot of discussion around not working in the practice, but working on the practice. And at the time, it seemed impossible for me to contemplate Anna and I both stepping out of our day-to-day active lawyer roles. I mean, we were going to docket every morning. We had our own caseloads. That was our life. And I thought to myself, to get the kind of people we need to run a division, ultimately multiple divisions, the amount of money we're going to spend, the amount of money we're going to be losing, quote unquote, because we're not handling cases. And again, lawyer ego, well, people are coming to hire Varghese and Summersett. Things are really going to go downhill. And we made massive investments into getting the right people over time. And it has paid off exceptionally. But it is a leap of faith. And our focus now is, of course, on maximizing what we're doing. Someone asked us today, when are you opening your 5th office? And I said, I really want to make sure that we are saturating completely the first 4 offices that we have before I start looking at office number 5. And it's not because there's not temptation. New Mexico is a great opportunity for us as a bordering state with phenomenal personal injury outcomes because you have better juries, better courts of appeal. But you have to temper that with understanding, make the most of what you've got first and then move on.
I'd love to dig into that mindset. What led to that shift of just essentially saying like, yes, this is going to cost a lot of money. We could be potentially, in quote, losing money if we're not the ones working up these cases. No one can do it as good as we can. Kind of essentially moving from working in the business to working on the business.
It's a leap of faith, but it is one of the things that has been so valuable in our journey with Crisp is being in the room with folks who have gone down that path and they say, look, it worked. And hopefully people hearing this will understand that there are others who have preceded you, right? This is as novel as it may be to you in the moment. The concept has already been proven. And it's really a question of, can you make the most of that time? If you hesitate on that second question, then maybe you shouldn't do the first, right? You have to be willing to maximize every moment. And for us, outside of our time with our family, it is go, 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 maximize every moment. And that's a mindset you have to say, I'm going to start working on the practice and not in the practice. If you're thinking on the practice means sitting on a beach, that I don't think that's going to work out.
Right.
Well, and I think too, the first question really is that what you want? And I think that there are a lot of people who want to have a successful business. They want to make a lot of money. They want to have massive impact on their community, but they want to be the trial lawyer. And you have to want to or be willing to put that aside, even if it's temporarily, because I've known some wild success stories of people who have run the business and then come back around once they have their C-suite built out, and now they're trying big bad cases again, and it feels awesome to put on that white hat. But you have to decide, is that what you want to do? And it's okay if it's not. Then go find somebody who can, because you have to put as much energy into running the business as you do into practicing law. And I think for us, there was a bit of a mourning process there. We've got egos. I mean, I was an excellent trial lawyer. He was an excellent trial lawyer. And I think given time, we would have been one of the greats. But we had to put that aside in order to make this investment, because this is something we were uniquely gifted at. And there were other trial lawyers out there we could find to come in and kind of better that position. So those are the two questions I think people have to ask themselves first is, what do they want to do? But if you want to grow your business, you are okay with outsourcing the talent behind the legal team, then you'll never regret and you'll always wish you had done it sooner, switching over and spending time working on it.
And during this whole period, I mean, let's talk, I guess, switch gears a little bit, talking about the personal side of all this and raising a family, and you got 3 kids, and you've also got this growing business. Like, how do you, I don't know if balance is the right word, but essentially, how do you juggle the two?
Well, first of all, we invest heavily in drywall, in spackling. We have 3 boys, and they are feral. And there is not a clean surface in our house that they have not met with a meat cleaver or, something else dramatic. So it is a ton of energy.
Yes.
It's a ton of energy to come home to. It's a ton of energy to wake up. I don't know what time your kids wake up. Ours wake up without an alarm, 5:30 in the morning.
Yep.
Okay, and they're ready to go.
Oh, yes.
And we don't want to change any of that because we're morning people too. We're like, come on, let's get on with our day. But you are starting at a level 10 at 5:30 in the morning. And it is wild to think you get in the car and you breathe a sigh of relief because you're like, okay, the kids are in school.
I totally understand on my way that to work. Moment now.
I'm now relaxing on my way to work, which is wild.
Yes.
Right?
Or that moment in the garage. I understand that moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know until you have your first child as a working mother, if you can really say, I've decided I'm going to go back to work or I'm going to stay home. I don't know until you have that child and you're staying home and you're working through that postpartum process that you can say, I've already made the decision. And I really hadn't made that decision after our first. And after my maternity leave with Knox, I looked at Benson and I was like, I want to come back to work. Mm-hmm. I think I'm a better mother to him and subsequently to our other 2 children because I work. And I want them to see that side of me. And I want to be able to have that outlet personally for my own personal well-being. But yeah, balance, probably not a good word. Yeah. There's not a ton of it. And we understand we're kind of in the thick of it right now. And things have just started to level out. Our youngest is 3. We're out of diapers. We're almost in the same school. They all play together independently. They don't need us for entertainment as much. And it's really been a sweet time as we've kind of leveled out of the baby stage.
Oh, yeah.
And that's made it certainly much more manageable. But there are some years there where I look back and I'm like, I don't know what was happening.
I know. It's a black hole. I think I blacked out for a good 3 years.
I know.
Especially that close together. Yeah.
Well, and consequently, it was about the time we started with Chris. I was like, all of these things just happened at one time. It was just a lot of change.
Yeah.
I would agree. Balance is a very poor word to describe what our lives look like, but we intentionally set our priority is our kids. And the only other thing in our life that we're spending time on outside of our kids is work. And that's intentional. There are huge sacrifices, right? When we talk to other couples, they all have couple friends that they hang out with, and they have nights of the week that they are able to take off. And our lives are, we get home and we spend time with our kids. That's a choice that we made. It is a little manic in terms of all the things that are going on, and
we all have our side hustles too. We all have like something else, like some creative outlet going on.
She got a tequila brand that she's launching with her brother.
Yeah,
I've got my
that's
own
been
thing.
super fun.
So we're always doing something, but it's a choice, and it's, as Anna put it, it's a stage of life. I don't think in 30 years I'll be doing exactly the same thing. I am probably a little bit of a workaholic, and I'll be doing something.
It's your way of relaxing. It's like some new project. Like I don't know if you've noticed this with Michael, but I feel like when he'll set these big goals, he'll have a vision, we'll work really hard, we'll be on these sprints, we'll accomplish it. And I'm like, great, let's celebrate. Where are we going?
No,
what are
there
we
is
doing?
None of that.
Oh, it is like he is already on to the next thing.
On to the next thing.
And I mean, I'll never forget one day he woke up, he's like, I'm going to write a book. I'm like, what? With like, what time are you going to write a book? Or when he woke up, he's like, I think we can make a better software than what's out there. We're going to make one. We're just going to develop it.
Yeah.
I was like,
and there's no dabbling.
Great.
It's not dabbling.
No, it's just
like all the way in.
It is concept to immediate first step, 24 hours notice, like get on board. Yes. But I recognize that's the man I married. And I know this is going to be a lifelong journey doing.
Oh, yeah.
We have fun.
We do have a good time. And now we get to drink tequila at the end of a long day.
That's awesome.
No, that's
yes,
tequila.
That's
This is
crazy.
exciting.
When is that coming
out? Oh, it is
out?
really cool. So it comes stateside in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
It's called Point Blank Tequila. We secured a partnership with Taylor Sheridan's Bosque Ranch Live. He's the executive producer of Yellowstone and all the awesome shows. And he's got a ranch in Weatherford. And we're the exclusive tequila for this music festival he's putting on. And that's our debut. So that's the first time people will be able to drink it. And I just got roped into it because I love my little brother. And he's an entrepreneur. And he came to me and said, hey, you want to help out with some branding? And I was like, absolutely, I do. So that's been like kind of my creative outlet because I've got that side of me that, sometimes law doesn't scratch. And it's been really fun.
It's been fantastic. I've gotten to get a front row seat, and Anna's being very humble. Lots of opportunities came because of how she designed everything related to Point Blank, from the website to helping with the bottles and the labels. And the story ultimately is what got Tyler Sheridan interested, because it's a very Texas story. There's a female founder when it comes to the distillery. And there was just a lot that, again, how you message is so important. And getting that message out is so important. She's done a tremendous job with that. So we're excited for her.
I've always laughed when people are like, what are your hobbies? I'm like,
we don't have hobbies.
We work. Nope. But now I get to say, actually,
that's
tequila.
a good one.
Tequila. I love it. So looking ahead, what are you guys most excited about? I mean, obviously the tequila, but what about just anything else in the firm, personally? What excites you?
Baseball tryouts on Sunday. That's exciting.
That's right.
No, you've got some big stuff coming up.
I think Anna's more excited about me launching Loft to the general public than I am, because that'll be a moment of relief for her that all this work has paid off. Within the firm, we have seen so much growth, but again, filling out our satellite offices to their capacity excites me. Growing the people within our firm, I think we've done a tremendous job of hiring and bringing on great people who are growing into their roles. Last year, we were able to come up with individualized career paths for all of them, again, inspired by y'all. And we want to help grow everyone at the firm to take us to the next level. And someday my 5-year vision may not be as scary because we'll have met it, and then I'll have a new 5-year vision.
Always. There's always the next one.
At some point, though, the goal of doubling your revenue every year becomes like...
That's daunting
really?
At some point, yes. Yes.
It's a lot. But I've always been proud that he's a man of great vision.
It's like the saying. I mean, you always want your future to be greater than your past. It's like you always want to be looking ahead as opposed to, looking backwards. So as we come to a close, guys, this being the Game Changing Attorney podcast, I'll ask each of you, and I'll start with you. What does being a game changer mean to you?
Being a game changer to me means being able to pivot towards challenge and not away from it. So when you see a challenge coming your way, your tendency is to pivot towards it and take it head on, as opposed to run or find some barrier between you and the thing that's scaring you.
Being a game changer to me has been seeing the effect of our work actually change markets in a way that affects the general public positively. So when we talked about 11 years ago, what legal looked like in North Texas, that has absolutely changed. And we played a part in that change. When people ask me, why are you getting into this space that's so crowded for law firm software? Again, it's the same idea that the work that we do raises the bar. If some small guy can come along and challenge what you have, it means everyone's going to improve, whether they use my product or not. It's the same thing we did in legal. And to me, that's what being a game changer is, being willing to be at the front of the line to say we're all going to do better because of it.
I want to give a huge thank you to Benson and Anna for taking the time to join us on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. If you found this episode valuable, here are 3 free ways that I can help you grow your law firm. Number 1, download the first chapter of my book absolutely free at GameChangingAttorney.com. Number 2, you can shoot me a text at 404-531-7691 and I'll answer any question that you've got for me. And finally, number 3, if you can leave this podcast a 5-star review, it'll help us gain access to more influential thought leaders and bring their lessons learned here to you. For more information on our interview with Benson Varghese and Anna Summersett, see the show notes for this episode in your podcast app or visit legalpodcast.com.